Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Right Side Mastery, and I'm excited to have Srinath Sridhar, who's a co-founder and CEO at Regie. Regie was founded in 2020, and Regie's advanced software blends the art of language and the science of delivery to create, test, and analyze personalized prospecting sales campaigns so you don't have to. Srinath has done his bachelor's from University of Texas and MSD for Carnegie Mellon. A big thanks to Leslie Venice for the introduction. Welcome to the show, Srinath.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you have a very interesting journey. I had Leslie on the show a couple of weeks back, and she did mention about Reggie and what a cool company that you've built. I and you have an interesting journey because you're an immigrant. You're from India. How did the entire journey start? How did you decide to get into this crazy world of startups? And obviously, you're very early into Facebook and Google, so I'm really excited to understand more about your journey.
Yeah, of course. So my life, so I grew up in India until I came to the US for my undergrad.
Right.
And that was an interesting journey in itself because I thought I was old at the time, and then, I thought I knew what I was doing. But these days, when I actually see 16, 17-year-olds going to college as a freshman, I look back and think, oh my God, like these kids haven't even grown fully. And they're really kids. So my self-image was very different from my reality, clearly. But at the same time, I wouldn't take anything back. I had a great time. I was very fortunate to work very closely with some of the professors at Texas. Then I did my PhD at Carnegie Mellon. So in many ways, it's everything that I wanted to do. And the atmosphere at CMU was fantastic for research. Got to spend time at Google and Facebook. So, can't complain. Startups have always been part of my life. Even when I was at Facebook, it was the first 100 engineers of Facebook. So very early days. And as Facebook was growing, I thought it was already too big at a few hundred people. And then I ended up going to as a founding member of another AI startup called Bloomreach. When I joined, it was 4 of us, including the founders. And it grew to $500 million in valuation. Then founded a startup called Onera that got acquired, then founded Regie. So startups have been all that I've done, actually. And any little semblance of a larger company that I've gone to, I've pretty much ran away from it too. So, yeah.
Interesting. And obviously, I'm interested to know about Facebook. Was you joined so early? You're there. I mean, before that, you got into Google, and you're there in 2006 and 7. This is super interesting. Where you, especially with Google, were you working very closely with the founders, and Sergey and Larry, and with Facebook? What was the experience working with the legendary Mark Zuckerberg? Especially in those days, it was it was all about Mark Zuckerberg trying to build something so different. What was the experience all about?
Yeah, at Google, it was a little too large already. So I did not definitely work with Sergey and Larry. They were in the same floor of the same building. But, it was definitely, I didn't know them. They didn't know me. But it was still a fantastic atmosphere to work in. And, the amount of resources we had at Google to work on was just mind-blowing at the time. Nothing else was even close from just sheer compute power standpoint. And that was the biggest thing that I could see at Google. You could join as an intern and you can access, even at the time, at least tens of thousands of nodes, maybe even 100,000 nodes, and you could just use them to do whatever you want. And I mean, for work, but still, nobody cared if you were using 100,000, compute units to do whatever you wanted to do. So It was pretty crazy to think about it. Facebook was diametrically opposite. Even when I left, our largest Hadoop cluster was 60 machines. And so it was the exact there, Zuck was very accessible, and everybody, all the engineers were on one floor. And he was just, just a normal guy. So Friday evenings, he would go around asking people if they wanted to play video games. He would just hang out in the office, and if people wanted to grab dinners and so on. So very easy to work with. It was chaotic. The company, the growth was unprecedented. It was like the first real viral growth of any kind.
Yeah.
Nobody had seen it before. And so the growth was astronomical, and all the pressures that come from it were pretty immense. And the team nothing was prepared for it. And so it was chaotic, but also exhilarating in some ways.
Got it. And any specific learning you learned from Mark is one of the standout entrepreneurs in the last, I would say, in the last 2 decades. Also very controversial, but
Yeah.
but what was so special about Facebook? Was it about processes? Was it about creative thinking? Was it about the team? How were they able to attract such a high quality team, trying to solve a problem where they were not thinking about revenue for such a long time? Obviously, we had Sheryl Sandberg coming later, but what do you think was the standout experience working with Zuck?
Yeah, so even Sheryl Sandberg, as an example, joined after me. So, so if you think about, I try to view the world a little bit more balanced. Facebook, it was for everybody. They loved the platform, and Zuck could do no wrong. And now he's hated by everybody. He's hated by ex-employees because, like, Chamath came out and said, Facebook is like a virus or something along those lines. And obviously he was at Facebook for a long time. And so people jump ships left and right. And obviously he gets subpoenaed, and he has to go in front of Congress and testify, and everybody's against him for different reasons. Right. But I view it much more balanced in the sense that, he's very sharp. He had a pulse for knowing what people wanted. I think the media portrayal of him being like a wicked, great engineer is I don't agree with it at all. He wasn't known for his engineering skills, to be completely honest. Yeah. And the code base was just awful. Like, the software stack was just incredibly bad, and all of that. So all of that, the media portrays is off, but he had definitely a pulse for what people wanted. And I think he kept that going with Instagram and WhatsApp and so on. So he clearly had a pulse, and it's very hard to get that in a founder. So you really need to know your target audience somehow really well. Yeah. And he really knew what people wanted even before people knew it was possible to have it. So if you actually look at Facebook as compared to, let's say, other platforms, Facebook kept innovating. It was the first one to introduce newsfeed in reality. At the time, it was just profile pictures, and you could just have profile views. That's it. It was the first to introduce newsfeed. The concept of newsfeed really did not exist before Facebook. First to introduce APIs that opened up Facebook platform to everybody else. First to do things like Facebook Connect and the like button that used to be everywhere else. So it was a first in a lot of these innovations that most other companies didn't have to do. And Facebook had to keep innovating to bring these things. And they were all good features when they launched. So I think that's the key trait. And that was all, I would say, predominantly because of one person.
Got it. Looks like he was a bit of a product visionary, right? So, and you spent a long time with Onero, and that's where I think you spent a large part of your career. What were you trying to build there, and what was your customer audience over there?
Yeah, so my background is in AI, machine learning, algorithms, that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
So Onera was right up my alley in terms of what we wanted to do. even going back to my PhD days. So we worked with retailers to optimize their supply chain. So we were working on some specific new problems. So retailers, if you go back 10 years, for the first time in the US at least, did buy online, pick up in stores, and buy online, ship from stores. So you could buy a product online, and then you can have it delivered, you can have it picked up, or you can have it actually shipped directly to you. And what this ended up doing is people started using stores as warehouses, essentially. Warehouses were made for fulfillment, stores were made for customers walking in and buying. And now you're using a store as a warehouse to do fulfillment for the first time. So that opened up a whole bunch of supply chain problems. Like, for example, where do you ship an item from? Like if I live in San Francisco and I order something from Macy's, there are probably multiple Macy's stores. There's probably one closest to me in San Francisco, but there might be one that's 2 hours away in Sacramento, but the Sacramento store may be running excess inventory. Or they're getting a new shipment that's coming in, or the price may not be the same. The price in even Target, which is one of the biggest retail stores in the US, is not the same. It really depends on if there is a Walmart nearby. And so if there are different prices in different stores, then you actually want to ship it from the store with the lowest price, because you are taking a smaller hit on your top line revenue. Customer has paid whatever they are paying online, but you want to ship it from the store with the lowest cost. So how do you do that optimization in real time? So that's basically what we did. So any online order that any of the large retailers took, so our customers included entire Hudson Bay banner, so Saks, Office, Hudson Bay. It included Dick's Sporting Goods, Lululemon, Express. So any of these retailers, when they took an order online, we decided how that order was fulfilled. So which store fulfilled it, and how to get that to the customer. So, and that optimization was run through Onera.
Super interesting. And after that, and around in the time of pandemic, correct me if I'm wrong, that's when you built Regie. But why did you want to solve the problem of Regie? I understand it's for sending a personalized prospecting sales campaigns, but also you're working with for marketing campaigns. What led you to build Regie?
Yeah, so in 2020, for the first time, AI went from being able to sort of recognize content to being able to generate content. So if you go back 10 years, AI just started doing things like image recognition. It could do, YouTube famously came out with this paper that could identify all the cats in YouTube videos. And so we were just having computers do some of the human tasks like speech recognition. You could talk to, 10 years back, Siri was so bad, you couldn't really talk to Siri, right? But now my Google Home just works perfectly. So we were starting to do a lot of the recognition tasks, image recognition, speech recognition, and so on. But we still hadn't done anything on the generative side. So 2 years back in 2020 is when the generation part of AI matured. And we had something called GPT-3 that came out that could, for the very first time, actually synthesize text. So can actually write text as an AI. And so once I saw that, I figured there must be some enterprise applications for it. It's such a disruptive piece of technology that there should be ways in which you can use it. So that was the genesis for the company. And so on the backs of that, basically we raised a seed round. But it wasn't until my co-founder came along that we actually ended up building the use case to target sales and marketing. But so for me, the genesis was GPT-3 coming out and this entire field of generative AI coming out in 2020. That basically started the whole process.
Got it. Interesting. And how are you using NLP for in your content platform for sales and marketing?
Yeah. So what you can do now is you can basically log into Regie and basically say that I use Outreach and I want to build a sales campaign, an email campaign in Outreach from scratch. And what Regie can do is it'll just ask you a series of questions. So for example, it'll ask you what kind of a campaign do you want to build? Do you want to do a nurture campaign, an outbound campaign, an inbound campaign? Is it a campaign for events? Are you inviting people for a conference? Is it about a webinar and so on? So it'll ask you some questions. Then it'll ask you to describe your company, any pain points you want to target, any value propositions that you offer, any social proof that you can provide. And once you enter all of that, it'll just go and build a multi-channel, multi-step email campaign. So 10 emails in a sequence with LinkedIn touches, with call scripts, all built simultaneously, all talking about this pain point and value proposition in a very coherent manner. So Regie does all of that for you. And then on top of that, you can share that campaign with other people so that they can comment and review it and approve it. We also provide an analysis on the right side for best practices, making sure subject lines and message lengths are in line. It doesn't have any spam words. It has good readability score. It's not too long. It's not too short, and many more such statistics. So Regie sort of helps you streamline that entire campaign building process, all with AI.
Got it. Interesting. And how, obviously I've been into, business development and sales, but how's email sequencing different for marketing and sales teams? Does the marketing team needs a different, sales campaign with different touch points? Whereas, do you think they need more number of touch points, more number of follow-up emails is how you differentiating, or are you looking at a different customer set, or do you have multiple customers that you're trying to target with, reaching out to sales, marketing, and account management?
Yeah, so good question. So what are the differences between sales and marketing campaigns? So at a very high level, the objective of a marketing campaign is to get some hand raisers. So it is basically, a marketing campaign is typically not something that asks for a call to action. A marketing campaign is not something that's going to say, hey, do you have 15 minutes to talk about Regie? Instead, a marketing campaign would be something that says, here are the best practices that Regie has found to generate better reply rates in emails. That's it. That's the entire email. So it doesn't talk about why you should use Regie, what pains you have in terms of using Regie, try to find some meeting times. Are you even the exact right person to use Regie? It doesn't matter. A marketing campaign is just meant to educate people, to present interesting ideas, and make people aware of the company. So it's mostly awareness is the main driver. And when it comes to sales campaigns, the idea is much more limited. So it's much fewer people, much closer to one-on-one conversations, much closer to personalized emails. And then you will obviously ask for a time to meet to discuss it. So what tends to happen is marketing is top of the funnel in creating awareness, and somebody may become hand raisers from marketing. Then they get into the sales funnel, which is more downstream. And then once they're in the sales funnel, then you are like, hey, what do you do? Here's what we do. What are the pains that you have? Here is how we solve those pains. Is there a good time to meet? So that's the largest difference. So some other differences, marketing, just for that reason, your set of lists of people will be much, much larger than the sales list of people. 50 people a day that you reach out to is a lot in sales, but it's nothing in marketing. Marketing emails tends to have a little bit more HTML image rich, whereas sales emails tend to be just text because it's just one-on-one format. So those are some of the differences between marketing and sales emails.
Got it. Interesting.
And actually the flip side is true, which is marketing emails tend to have smaller sequence length than sales emails. So marketing, because it's mainly things like, here is a blog post that we wrote, here is a report that we published, and so on. Whereas sales emails is much more like, hey, do you have this problem? Here is a proof that we can solve this problem. Here's why you should use us to solve this problem. So that sequence structure is maintained in a sales email. Whereas in a marketing email, it doesn't matter so much. It's just like, hey, here's a report that you may be interested in.
Got it. And obviously, you know, I'm going to ask about the sales part of it. What do you think is the ideal number of follow-ups that, you know, a sales guy should do? You know, if I want to reach out a cold outreach, what should be the number of follow-ups? Is it 7, 15, 4? You know, what would be the ideal?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so we have all of these touch patterns built into Regie.
Right.
And a lot of these depend on the use case. So for example, let's say you do a general cold outbound. Our standard general cold outbound is 15 steps over 30 days. So it's a month long, and you are doing 15 steps. Not all the 15 steps are emails. Emails in this case are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 emails. And the rest are either calls or LinkedIn. Now that's I would say, a standard cold outbound cadence. Now that has some problems though. Mainly the problem is, what if you don't have capacity to do calls or personalized follow-ups or LinkedIn touches and so on? So then you don't want to be on this, because then, you know, you just don't have the capacity to execute on this campaign. So then what you can do is you can do something that's much more automated. So a fully automated email only campaign for us will be a standard of 2 weeks over 6 emails, just emails, nothing else in there. And everything is automated. So there's nothing personalized in there, nothing that'll stop the execution of the campaign. So that gives you some flavor. And this is just cold outbound. So in one case, it's 30 days, 15 steps, includes calls and LinkedIn and multiple channels to communicate. And the other is just 2 weeks, 6 steps, 6 emails. And more importantly, or equally importantly, the emails have to follow a certain logical pattern. So for example, in the automated case, first email will be an introduction email that introduces the company. Second email is just a bump email. It's just a follow-up. Hey, did you see this email? Did you have a chance to look at it? Then you can send a referral email. If you're not the right person, can you point me in the right direction? And then you stop that, restart, new subject line, new email thread, do another introduction email. Then you can do like a multiple choice emails. Hey, can you just tell me, here are the 3 possibilities, which one am I closest to? And then you can send like a breakup email that says, okay, I understand this is not the right time. Sorry for bothering you. If things change, then please let us know. So it has to follow some logical sequence. So that's something to keep in mind.
Got it. And I think, you know, all sales guys should have that hustle mentality. And, you know, when it comes to the target, they should take it like a personal responsibility. But they also need to you know, be very personalized in their approach when they're trying to do the outreach. And that's something I do struggle with. What advice would you give to me on how do I personalize my email sequences so that I get a much better response?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, it's good to just avoid general email sequences. So for example, just don't say, here is what the entire company does, and if you have time, let us connect, because that's the worst of the lot, without a doubt. You can do significantly better by structuring it in the following way, which doesn't go all the way to personalized campaigns. It gives you some sort of sanity, but it also gets you a lot of leverage, because you can do this as a single person and still get away with it. So, and that is to define your personas you're targeting. And for each persona you're targeting, what is the pain point that they have, and what's the value proposition that you provide? So create a matrix that basically says, I want to target these 5 different personas. So for example, this could be, I want to target CIOs in healthcare. I want to target CISOs, like chief information security officers in SaaS companies. I want to target VP of engineering in retail. I want it, and so on. So you come up with the list of 5 personas that you want to target. Now, for each one of those personas, then you come up with the list of pain points that they have. So for example, if you're talking to a chief information security officer in a cloud company, maybe they're interested in SOC 2, maybe they're interested in GDPR. If you're talking to somebody in healthcare, maybe they're interested in HIPAA. And maybe you're selling a security software. That's what I'm assuming at this point. But then you come up with the value proposition that basically says, look, if you have HIPAA compliance issues, please note that we actually can solve this problem in the following manner. And so you come up with that matrix that says, here's the personas I want to target. Here are the pain points that they have. And here are the value propositions that I offer. So now you have 5 different sequences as opposed to 1 sequence. That goes a long, long way. So that's the first simple step that you can do, which is talk to them, the problems that they have, and the solutions that you offer for the problems they have. So that's the simplest step, goes a long way already. Then the next from there is the first email that you send out. You can convert that into a manual email. And when you are actually sending that email out, you can personalize it to them. So like they just switched jobs, they actually have been doing information security forever, they're new to information security, whatever that case might be. They were a client before, or they were in a company that was a client before. They are working in a company that is currently a client, but they are not a client. Whatever that case may be, you may want to establish that. So you can change the first email as a manual email. So that's the next step. Then all the way you can go is account-based marketing, which is instead of doing 1 email, so you send 1,000 emails, 1 email sequence per account. And that's, of course, much more intense. But so those are sort of the logical ways to split it. Even if you just go from generic to just persona-based, I think you will already get a lot of leverage.
Got it. Interesting. And you mentioned about getting to understand the persona and understand if they have switched jobs and what's been the activity on LinkedIn. Does Regie provide all that information, and does it connect to say Twitter and LinkedIn, and we can get the updates and then okay, that's possible.
Okay, right. So for example, when we do 2 things. So one is we help you create the matrix that I was talking about. So personas, value props, pain points, and be able to create a campaign that's catering to exactly that persona for that pain point, for that value proposition. So it'll create you a bunch of sequences. What you can then do is set the first email on the first sequence to a manual email. And when the time comes to send that email out, Regie will pull all the relevant information automatically for this specific person. So their work history, we actually pull out their disk profile. We will have a do's and don'ts on how to talk to them. We'll have information about their company's funding, whether they're opening any new jobs, what the technographic information is. So all of that is pulled directly into it. Their recent tweets, their recent LinkedIn posts, news about the company. So all of that is pulled in directly. And Regie can actually even write a personalized snippet for you. So at least to get you started. So Regie does both the sequencing side, but the personalization side as well.
Got it. Interesting. And I'm always interested to understand that especially in an early stage startup, like before you had raised your Series A, who would you prefer to hire, more senior, experienced people or younger hustlers with more energy?
Yeah, so Facebook was completely built off of inexperienced team, to say the least. Right. Very high energy. People really bonded. High drama, but high energy, and got lots of things done badly, but got a lot of things done. And there is something to that for sure. I also think it's also funny that as you grow up, I feel like you always think that the right people to hire are exactly your seniority. I still distinctly remember that when I was at Bloomreach, I thought anyone with more than 10 years of experience is way past their prime, and I would never work with someone. And then here I am, like, I don't know, 20 years out of school, thinking that 20 years is exactly the right amount of experience, no lesser, no greater. But at least I'm conscious to know that that's clearly a bias. I think both are true. So I think absolutely both are true, which is we at Regie have lots of people straight out of school. This is their first job, and they work incredibly well. We also have people who are vastly more experienced than me, like my co-founder, who is also incredibly good. So I really think it depends. I think both are perfectly fine options, and you should absolutely feel the need to promote from within. But if the right person comes from outside, that's totally fine as well. So I think both, I'm sort of pro both as long as they're great people.
Got it. Interesting. And especially, I wanted to understand um, uh, what are some of the core characters traits that you look for when you're looking to hire your first product leader. Obviously, as a CEO, you can never be away from product, but when do you think about hiring a product guy, and can the CEO move away from the product and give it to a product leader?
It's a good question. We are actually looking for a head of product right now, so
Uh,
I can definitely tell you a little bit about what we are looking for,
yeah.
and if that even makes sense or not. So I think CEOs come in different flavors, and just like anybody else. So at the end of the day, I'm an engineer at heart and in reality. At the end of the day, Matt's strength is in sales. And so, no matter what you are, you end up not being a perfect generalist, I think, and you end up being biased towards one side or another side. So if your CEO is someone who is like very product focused, then that asks the question, do you need another product person? My question, if I am the CEO, which I am, is the question of, do I need an engineering leader or not? And I absolutely think we need an engineering leader as well. But what I think it gives you is you can delay that a little bit longer than otherwise. And it's probably a good idea to delay it a little bit longer. So if you come from a sales background, you can delay the head of sales hire longer. If you come from an engineering background, you can delay the head of engineering for a little bit longer. If you come from a product background, you can delay the product hire for a little bit longer. And who the product person is also depends on what you are looking for. So in Regie, we're not looking for like a project manager, because engineering management is very easy for us. The engineers do a great job. And like I said, my background is anyway in a little bit engineering, so quite a bit engineering. So that is not a hard issue. It's not a question of maintaining timelines and product features and putting it on Asana or something along those lines. For us, the product hire needs to be someone who can look at the landscape, look at the products that have done well, look at the products that have not done well, talk to customers, figure out if the roadmap that we have is catering to their needs. Should we change things in one way or another? So it's much more strategic, much more roadmap focused than day-to-day execution focused. And obviously I will help with that. Matt will help with that. But if there's one person who needs to make those trade-offs on which direction to go, why we should go that direction, that would be the head of product. So I think, and as the CEO, the problem is I get stretched very thin very quickly. For example, doing finance, because we don't have a head of finance right now, and engineering, because we don't have a head of engineering right now. And so there's just a lot of, and talking to investors and so on. So there's just lots of things you get stretched thin on, and you don't want to lose focus on product. And so it doesn't become a part-time job.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important.
Got it. And obviously, I'm on the revenue side. So I was wondering, when do you think you should hire the head of sales enablement, or somebody on like the head of revenue or the CRO? for a company? When do you get to decide that you write for the revenue to get ahead of revenue on board?
Yeah, that's also a good question. And to a certain extent, the answer is related to my previous answer. So if you look at Onera, my previous startup,
Right.
my co-founder did a lot of the selling. And we didn't hire a head of sales for a long time. If you look at Bloomreach, one of the co-founders did a lot of selling, but we actually did hire a salesperson fairly quickly. I think it's good to hire sooner than later than most people advise, is my 2 cents. It doesn't have to be a head of sales, but I do think it's helpful to hire someone sooner than later. But it needs to be someone who can thrive in uncertainty rather than someone who needs the sales process down. And the reason I think it was helpful in the case of Regie and helpful in the case of Bloomreach is that there is a constant pipeline of customers that you can experiment with. Because otherwise, one of a few different things can happen. One is you may just have 1, 2, 3 customers, and you're building something that doesn't make sense for customers at large, and you actually don't get that feedback quickly enough. The other is you may just, have a bias towards solving the problem in a way that's not scalable. So having a stream of customers always pushes you to think more broadly and keeps you innovating in the right direction. But it has to be someone who can say that, oh shit, that didn't work. Oh crap, this is not the ICP. Okay, we clearly got the pricing wrong. There has to be some flexibility there, and they shouldn't panic because one quarter pricing is enterprise, the next quarter pricing is SMB, then the next quarter we say, okay, we abandon both and we're going to start with ProServe, it has to be something that's more flexible. But I do think it's helpful to have someone earlier than most other people advise.
Oh, interesting. And I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book or any fiction books?
I'll give you a little bit something that's out of the ordinary. So I've read like 0 to 1,
right,
and so on. So I'm sure there's lots of people who would give you lots of those books. So let me give you something that is very much out of the ordinary. It's a very little known book, but made an impression on me. And it's very geeky, but it has something for everybody. It's called Combinatorial Problems and Exercises. And it's by a European mathematician. And the nice thing about the book is the problems are all numbered in such a manner that it would make sense if you're completely new and you don't even have a math background or a computer science background. And it would also make sense if you are a professor of combinatorics. So it's very nicely done where no matter who it's meant for, it's a book that you can pick up and read. Very little known book, but the name of the book is Combinatorial Problems and Exercises. I'm sure it's on Amazon. It's a very old book. But anyway, that's a little bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah, no, I like out of the ordinary. I think different from Sapiens or 0 to 1. We'll put that in the show notes. And if you could go back in time when you started Regie, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Yeah. So first of all, this is not my first startup, and I have been in startups all my life.
True.
And even then, I learn a lot. So just when you thought you had learned everything, you realize it's just you haven't learned anything at all. There's so much more to do, so much more to learn. Every time you start afresh, it's a daunting journey, and nothing is easy. This time for me, for Regie, I mean, one of the greatest things to have happened is me meeting my co-founder, Matt, because for whatever reason, I mean, you would think, looking at my background, that I should be, somebody who's full of confidence and, he did his PhD from Carnegie Mellon, worked at Google, Facebook. Like, what is this guy talking about? And was successful. But it's not at all true. Like, I had so much, and not my first startup, my previous startup got acquired and I've done well financially, all this stuff. But so much self-doubt, unclear what the product is doing, what the traction is going to be, how I'm going to raise money. And so this time, I think the good thing is I met my co-founder. And so I think if what I could have done differently could have been that I could have tried to find one sooner than I did. And initially, I thought I would just do the startup this time by myself. And I think that was clearly a wrong idea. And now it feels like next time I could do it by myself, but that's probably a wrong idea too. So I'm very glad to have found Matt. I wish I had found a Matt earlier than I did. So I think wait for the right person. It makes a huge difference to be working with somebody else.
Interesting. It's like a marriage because you're there with that person for such a long time. It's like a decade-old relationship.
That's
And
right.
and what's your favorite online tools? For example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom. You think anything other than Regie?
Regie is a favorite tool. So the other thing I can think of is, this is also a little bit biased, but I mean, I'm blown away with everything in the generative AI space. So if you haven't played around with it, look at GPT-3 and OpenAI specifically, and the tools that have come out of it, including Whisper and DALL-E. And it is just mind-blowing what we can do now. So I play with it every day, and it's going to change the world.
Super interesting. We'll put that in the show notes. And Srinath, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Regie?
Yeah, so I'm happy to put a link. I give you a link. You can add it to your notes. And you can go try out the product. We can add I will send you a referral link that anybody can use. You can also generate your own referral link if you want. We can offer 20% discount for anybody who gets into a paid customer. We also send gift cards out on Amazon for $50 for people using the product. So feel free to sign up. Hopefully it's a lot of fun and you use it for that reason. And it's actually very useful. But we do have a little referral program that happy to get everybody involved in.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Srinath. We'll share the referral link so that our listeners could use the product and could get better in sending out the email sequences. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us, Srinath. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.